Before the stars were named, before stone walls carved with divine figures stood silent in the ancient desert, there existed a form of communication that required no words. It could not be taught, could not be written into books, could not be measured by any instrument, only felt deep within the innermost layer of being. The ancients called it the primordial frequency, not a sound, but a vibration never separated from the cosmos. It was not an abstract concept. It was the foundation of all things that once connected humankind with dimensions that language has never been able to describe. And from that original resonance, a structure unlike any other was formed, the last gate. It was not built of stone. It required no foundation. The last gate was never a physical object. It could not be found on a map seen through a telescope or entered as a material doorway. It was a convergence point between frequency memory and ancient consciousness. A crossroads between the reality in which we are imprisoned and another layer where time does not move forward, but loops in eternal rhythm, where past and future merge into one pulse. That gate once opened, not once, but many times, in ages that have since been erased. And every time it was activated, a civilization crossed through and then vanished like mist, leaving behind undeciphered symbols, temples that could never be rebuilt, and a whispered echo. One day it will open again. But then something happened. Not a collapse, but a sealing by forgetting. The last gate was not locked. It was silenced. How? By reprogramming memory. Those who once felt its presence were branded superstitious. The ancient frequencies were distorted into hollow rituals, and the gate, which once resonated in the blood and bone of our ancestors, fell into a deep sleep, awaiting the right vibration to awaken once more. And now, it is happening. Not in one place, but everywhere. In dreams that defy explanation. In the strange stirring felt when standing before an ancient symbol. In the wordless hum that rises in the chest of those who carry within them remnants that were never fully rewritten. The primordial frequency is returning. Softly, quietly. But it cannot be stopped. The last gate is beginning to vibrate once more. And when it opens, not only space will shift, but the soul itself will be forced to confront a truth long forgotten. It was never abandoned. It had simply forgotten it once, walked through. The last gate was never broken, because it was never made of matter to begin with. It was not a doorway forged by hands, could not be touched with tools, nor seen by ordinary eyes. This gate exists in a structure deeper than energy, within the harmonic rhythm of primordial consciousness. It is a wave layer, but not of radio nor of light. Rather, it is the innermost plane where memory and matter converge, where will and reality were once one. Across millennia, this gate has neither closed nor opened. It simply waits. Waits for a point of resonance, a precise echo. A forgotten vibration that was never erased. While the world has been swept away in linear history, in systemized religion, in languages flattened and hollowed, the last gate has remained beyond all appearances like a low note never struck. But this is not fantasy, not a miracle, not vague mythology. This entity, if one can even call it that, is part of the true structure of the cosmos, a point of connection where time no longer flows like a river, but rests like a still lake, where a single ripple can shatter the mirror. When the gate vibrates, it is not simply an event. It is the fracture of reality. Dimensions slip. What we call real begins to contract, making room for something more real. A layer we once knew, once felt, before we were programmed to forget. This gate has opened before. Not once, many times. In cycles now cloaked in legend. People called it the Golden Age, the time when God still walked among men, the era before the Great Flood. But these were only feeble words, attempts to describe an epoch when human beings, or rather conscious life forms, once resonated fully with the last gate. No technology was needed, no incantations, only pure presence where blood, breath, and frequency pulsed in unison with an unnamed dimension. But then, something intervened. A decision not made by humankind, but by forces that once wielded the power to bend reality through resonance. They did not destroy the gate, They corrupted the memory of it. They redrew the cosmic maps. They transformed living symbols into hollow rituals. They altered the breathing rhythm of language. And most of all, they made humanity fear its own intuition. From that moment on, the last gate faded into silence. Not because it had weakened, but because no one could hear it anymore. Yet the gate never ceased. It simply shifted from the realm of sight to the realm of sensation, from the mind to the spine. It lives in dreams, in nameless tones, in that strange ache when certain souls step into unfamiliar places that feel heartbreakingly known. And then, as if by instinct, it begins to hum again. Not loudly, not violently, just a subtle oscillation like an echo from a forgotten quadrant of the cosmos. And those who still carry even the slightest resonance in their blood, those not fully overwritten, will feel it first. Not with their ears, but through a sensation like a heartbeat, half a note out of sync. A nameless feeling, but stronger than any logic. The last gate is awakening. Not because humanity has found it, but because the gate itself is remembering those who once walked through it long ago. And this time it will require no invitation, only a point of contact, a soul in perfect resonance. And when that moment comes, no empire, no dominion will be able to stop the shattering wave. No maps needed, no magic required. Lemuria did not vanish. Atlantis did not fall by flood. The cities we now call lost did not collapse. They simply slipped out of the linear dimension humanity is trapped within. They did not fall. They withdrew, soft as a wave, yet carrying their entire resonant essence with them. They stepped through a gate no one could name, leaving behind no monuments or shipwrecks, only traces. These traces are not found in history books. They do not appear on academic maps. They emerge in places modern knowledge quietly rejects, spirals carved into stone structures built without mortar that still stand after thousands of earthquakes. Ancient instruments that sing in perfect 432 Hz, the frequency that resonates with water, with the brain, with the heartbeat. Each of these ancient civilizations, labeled myth by scholars, is in fact a chain of memories encoded. They did not write in words. They left maps in symbols, not for learning, but so that those on the same frequency might remember. And when the right soul resonating true steps into the right place, everything hums like a living symphony. The last gate did not open just once. It opens in cycles. Each cycle is an experiment, an opportunity, a silent invitation. Lemuria once passed through when the sea had not yet learned salt. Mu crossed dimensions when the moon was still a hollow shell. Atlantis. The city of light withdrew when Earth's vibrational layer began to drift out of phase. They did not fail. They simply exited the game. But before their departure, each civilization left behind a point of contact, a secondary gate, a signal, an object or phenomenon, perhaps a stone that sings, perhaps electromagnetic pulses from deep chambers, perhaps a frequency modern minds mislabel as noise. They did not need to be understood. They needed to be felt. And in this modern world where all things are digitized, rationalized, and boxed in logic, those contact points still lie dormant, waiting for a returning signal. But they are no longer fully silent. In some places, strange tones echo within ancient temples. Children draw symbols no one has taught them. Some people, without knowing why, feel a sharp pain in their chest when touching a nameless stone wall. No one knows what it means, except for those who carry a rhythm in their blood that was never silenced. These souls need no degrees, no titles. They do not know the reason, only that they are called to certain places. Places where the energy is thicker than air, where light falls slower than usual, where the chest vibrates simply from taking one step. And in those places, once called sacred forbidden dead zones, a wave is beginning to break its seal. Not loudly, not with alarms, but with a movement so deep that the last gate has begun scanning for resonance. This signal is not meant to awaken all of humanity. It seeks only to locate the final links, those few who still carry the resonance of a civilization that history never recorded. Because the last gate does not need to be discovered. It only needs to be remembered. And every ancient world from Eridu to Osirian performed the same ritual, not the handing down of knowledge, but the seeding of a vibration, a frequency code. A silent invitation, sent into the age of forgetting when humanity believes itself the pinnacle, yet cannot explain why the heart stutters when standing among ruins. Lemuria Mu Atlantis did not die. Not all gods wanted the gate to open. Some had once stepped through it and knew what would happen if humanity were to resonate with the cosmos once more. Enki, god of the original frequency, who breathed through primal rhythm and recorded the architecture of life through vibration, once kept the pulse. He did not rule with authority, but with resonance. He created no laws, but awakened memory in beings who knew how to vibrate true. But Enlil, the elder brother who chose order as his compass, could not tolerate the unpredictability of freedom. To Enlil, the gate was a threat, a passage no system could control, and so a rift began. Marduk, the ambitious young god, did not want the gate destroyed. He wanted to own it, to encode the ancient vibration into symbols of new power, to turn what once flowed freely into a frequency of management, like law, like dominion. And Inanna, once the wave of original love became seduced by structure, she shifted from resonance to ritual, from sensing to visual control. She donned armor, she erected temples. She believed that for love to survive, it needed form. They did not destroy the original frequency. They sealed it. They built imitations rituals that mimic beautiful scripts that are hollow myths not meant to awaken, but to replace memory. Fear became the most efficient tool. Those who fell out of sync were called heretics. Those who remembered were punished. And so, over centuries, the true resonance was wrapped in the shell of faith, but the core was already hollow. Enki did not fight back with violence. He did not lead a rebellion. He withdrew like the final low note lingering after a forced change in rhythm. He embedded frequency codes into the earth, into water, into blood, into DNA, awaiting the day the right soul touches the right point. And he left a final warning. If the wave layers are distorted, the entire structure will collapse from within. But that warning was erased from the tablets, his name pushed to the margins. Temples once resonating with his frequency were destroyed, then rebuilt under different names. No one realized behind the walls of what was now called divine authority was a silent war, not of belief, but of frequency. Not of gods, but of resonance. Because the last gate cannot be opened with sword or flame, nor can it be sealed with stone. It responds only to the right rhythm. And for that reason, what the later gods feared most was not rebellion, but unconscious resonance. A soul that needs no teaching, no divine favor, only remembers, and that is enough to open the gate. And when one opens, everything will tremble. Enlil built the system. Marduk rewrote history. Inanna wrapped emotion in ritual. Together, under the guise of protection, they established a false field of frequency, a fabricated vibrational shell so humanity could only hear the echo, never the original tone. And within that artificial resonance, the last gate fell asleep. Until one minor deviation occurs, no war needed, no prophecy, just a soul uncertain why suddenly dissonant within the simulated system. Then the true resonance begins to leak, the divine structure begins to tremble, memory sheds its casing, and the gate once obscured within the unconscious begins to hum on its own, not with sound, but with return, not the return of a god, but of the original frequency itself. Within those who no longer belong to the structure, there is no lock, no chain. Erasing memory alone is enough. Once humanity forgot how to resonate, even if the gate appeared right before their eyes, it would remain invisible. What is now called intellect is merely a layer of obstruction. Rationality has silenced vibration. Yet within the blood, within the breath, within the heartbeat of certain souls, the original frequencies have not been fully extinguished. They do not sound as voices. They do not form as words. They do not appear in data or diagrams. They live in nameless moments, when the eyes linger a little longer on an ancient symbol, when the hand unconsciously draws a spiral on a blank sheet, when the same image repeats in dreams but disappears from memory by morning. These vibrations do not come from outside. They are responses, echoes from the other side of the last gate, a voiceless call not sent to be heard, but to be remembered. For what has been hidden is not knowledge, but the capacity to recognize resonance. Humans were never barred from accessing the gate. They were simply severed from the frequency that unlocks it. All systems were constructed. Philosophy, religion, science, wearing the mask of truth-seeking. But each was meticulously designed to lure the mind into a labyrinth away from a simple truth. Truth does not require explanation. It only requires feeling on the right frequency. and so the gate remains not protected but forgotten. It never needed to hide. As long as the world is loud enough, distracted enough, confident enough in what it learns from the outside, no one turns inward. But occasionally in the middle of the noise, a soul suddenly vibrates for no apparent reason. A heartbeat skips. A deep breath escapes control. A strange sense arises as if something once belonged to them, but they cannot recall what. And in that very moment, the last gate responds. Not with light, not with sound, but with a faint vibration like an echo from a memory that never had language, like a current running down the spine but not biological, a subtle movement in the soul signaling that something untouched is beginning to wake. The system does not fear rebellion. It has methods to deal with defiance. What makes it tremble are those souls who resonate true, those who need no protest, no declaration, no revolution, only to return to resonance. Because once the original frequency reawakens in a single being, the false structure of imposed vibration begins to fracture from within. No war is needed, no salvation, only one soul, one who has preserved the first resonance. And if one can, then two will, then three. And an invisible network will begin to activate with no leader, no control, only points of light resonating true, finding each other. They will not build temples. They will not write books. They will simply remember. And from that memory, an ancient cosmic rhythm will begin to hum once more. The last gate does not seek the powerful. It does not choose the wise. It seeks the ones who have not been completely silenced. The one who in the stillness of night hears a sound from far away from nowhere specific, yet it causes the heart to skip half a beat. The one who upon stepping through ruins feels tears rise for reasons unknown. The one who looking up at the sky does not just see stars but sees a promise, one that was never spoken aloud. And when such a soul exists, the gate hidden for thousands of years will begin to appear in the frequency layer, not through the eyes, not through the ears, but through the memory that survived in the resonance that was never falsified. CERN, the Higgs particle, string theory. Scientists believe they are exploring the final frontier of the universe, but in truth, they are knocking on an old wall. A wall not built of matter, but of resonance long buried. They activate colossal machines, colliding particles at the speed of light, and witness unstable oscillations, phenomena that defy the models. They call it noise. They record it, analyze it, but they do not understand this is not an error. It is a response. An ancient intelligence, formless, without technology, impossible to translate into mathematics, is beginning to stir from a slumber that has lasted millennia. It is not angry, not hostile. It simply responds. Because what is now being repeated in the lab unintentionally matches a resonance it once received from ancient souls. A familiar vibration, an impulse once used to open the last gate. And like instinct, the intelligence reacts, not with tools, but with vibration. Not through radio waves, but through frequency memory. In their detectors, strange particle patterns emerge, entities with no prior classification. Physicists label them quantum decay anomalies, cracks in the standard model. But they do not stop. They increase the collision energy unconsciously, repeating the very behavior that once opened a fracture in time during the age of Atlantis. Within the silent layers of space, an old fracture splits open again. It does not open a black hole as theorized. It opens a resonance of memory. The most sensitive souls feel it first: strange dreams, a ringing in the ears, a sensation of being called by something unnamed. These are not symptoms. They are echoes. No one speaks of this at scientific conferences. No official report dares to mention ancient intelligence. But a few researchers withdraw quietly. They know they have touched something beyond control, not because it is powerful, but because it does not belong to this age. This intelligence requires no technology to exist. It is a living memory transmitted through space by resonance, without word, without image. In the time of Lemuria, it was called by a name that could not be pronounced, only felt. In the time of Mu, it was symbolized by a spiral, each curve representing a memory cycle. In Atlantis, it was heard as a melody, one that resonated only when the entire city moved in synchronization. And now modern humanity, believing itself far removed from myth, is touching it once again. They do not know that they are calling back something that never truly left. It simply rested beneath the vibrations, silent only because it was forgotten. And now, with every turn of the accelerator, every proton collision, every quantum experiment, they are recreating vibrations too similar to the original gate opening signal. And that intelligence, unbound by time, has begun to respond. There is no sound, no light. Only points of resonance appearing everywhere, repeated dreams, symbols, redrawn children, speaking words. No one taught. Instruments detecting strange waves in absolute silence. The instruments cannot explain it, because what they are touching does not belong to physics. It belongs to the memory of cosmic frequency. And when that intelligence fully awakens, there will be no bombs, no apocalypse, but a new layer of vibration will ripple through every stratum of existence. Some souls will remember, others will fracture. The last gate does not require hands to open. It only needs the right resonance repeated. And those who believe they are writing a new chapter of physics are in truth reading an ancient greeting sent long ago when the stars had not yet been named. There are dreams that repeat, symbols drawn with no known origin. There are people living ordinary lives yet carrying within them a quiet sense that they do not truly belong to this reality. As if this place were only the surface of a deeper layer, one they once visited, once belonged to, and are now being gently called back toward. This is not disorder. It is a signal, an echo from another dimension, where the last gate still hums softly, emitting a wave not carried by words, but by frequency memory. Souls that still hold a trace of the original rhythm, even if they do not know its name, even if they do not understand how it works, are beginning to vibrate again. Not by will, not by intention, but by an ancient reflex encoded in their very flesh from a time before language. They were not taught to remember, but when they hear the right sound, touch the right symbol, stand at the exact coordinate on Earth, their body reacts, as if aligning once more with something vast and familiar. They don't need proof, because they are the proof. In dreams, they walk through endless corridors lit by living symbols. They hear a voice in a language they never learned, but understand it as clearly as their mother tongue. Some draw spirals, intersecting circles, a third eye detached from the brow. Some who have never met describe the same radiant gate standing in the heart of a desert where the stars breathe in silence. All share one thing: they do not know why this is happening, but they cannot deny that it is. And so a network begins to form, not an organization, not a sect, no list. Only points of light scattered across the map of human consciousness, quietly resonating to a common background wave. No one leads it. But all are drawn toward the same feeling that something ancient is returning, not from outside but from within. This is not a new phenomenon. In past ages, souls once synchronized in this way and together opened a fracture. Lemuria did it with harmonic singing. Atlantis used resonant geometry. The ancient Cometians channeled frequencies through pyramids. Each civilization, before disappearing from linear history, stepped through the last gate, leaving behind a frequency map for the next generation. And now those maps, long buried in dreams, are being read again, not with words, but with raw pulses in the heart, in the skin, in the eyes. Some souls, just by standing at an ancient site, feel a current surge up their spine. Some, by hearing a certain frequency, shed tears without understanding why. Some, when touching stone or soil, feel something that has been waiting for them for a very long time. It is not that the soul finds the place. It is the place that has been waiting for the soul to vibrate in the right frequency. This is not superstition. This is resonance. No one can stop it. Because what is opening does not exist in the material world. It resides in a layer of memory that has never been named. And those who can feel that layer will never fully return. They will begin to live in two planes, one of the visible world and one of the world that can only be felt. They will no longer sleep peacefully. They will be led not by reason, but by a silent calling that awaits them beyond the gate. The last gate does not require millions to open. It only needs enough who still remember the hum that was never taught. It is not a wooden door, a stone arch, or an ancient underground chamber. The last gate is the intersection point between vibration, memory, and soul. Some call it the ancient eye. Others describe it as a spiral, but no one can possess it. It belongs to no civilization, carries no nationality, and is not tied to any single god. It appears only when a being who was once connected to it begins to reattune with themselves. And that is exactly what makes it invisible to most of humanity. Because in this world, people are taught to search for answers outside themselves. They travel east for mysticism, west for technology, descend into ruins, seeking archaeological proof, climb mountains in search of divine guidance. But the last gate does not exist at any fixed point in three-dimensional space. It is not confined to maps or coordinates. It exists at the intersection between inner resonance and memory that has never been put into words. Some souls step into that intersection only for a moment in a dream, in a skipped heartbeat, in the brush of a hand against an ancient symbol. And in that moment, the gate appears, not as an image, but as a sensation, as if space contracts, as if the weight of the world lifts, as if the soul long imprisoned in layers of language touches an ancient current that has never stopped flowing across the millennia. This gate does not summon. It does not pull anyone toward it. It does not persuade. It simply resonates. And whoever is in tune with it will see it. Even in the midst of crowds, in the heart of a city, amidst all noise, the gate appears. Quietly, expanding, promising no glory, granting no power, simply offering a path inward to a deeper layer where nothing more needs to be learned, only unlearned. And that is why no one can open it by force of will. No one can claim it in the name of any deity, because the last gate does not respond to authority. It does not bow to the canonized. It does not resonate with titles, rank, or prayer. It only responds to the return of the original resonance. When a soul vibrates true, the gate will appear as if it had never left, as if it had always been there unseen simply because no one was yet looking with the right eyes. In ancient Ubaid legend, they spoke of a silent spinning gate that opened only when shadow and inner light merged. The Egyptians called it the passage between heartbeat and feather. The Hindus depicted it with the mandala, a spiral of eternal return. But at the deepest layer, despite differences in language, they were all speaking of the same thing. A point of frequency, convergence visible only to those who have peeled away the interference. And when that happens, no instruction is needed. The body leads the way. The hand finds the exact place. The breath aligns again. The eyes blur to this world, to begin seeing a gate woven of living vibration endlessly turning, requiring no light to shine. The last gate is an unwritten invitation, a sound not emitted, an image without form. And if a soul can hear it not through the ears but through the memory encoded in their very cells, then it is a sign they have arrived at the precise intersection, not to cross over, but to realign with what was once severed long before language was born, before the stars were named, and before humanity forgot that they once had the ability to feel gates that never needed to open in order to appear. No titles, no sects. They are the ones who remember the original sound, who draw symbols never seen before, who hum melodies without language. They were not taught, nor did they study. It is simply that within them, the frequency was never silenced. They are gradually reconnecting across distances, through dreams, through glances. A living network is preparing to resonate. No one knows exactly who they are. They might be a child who has not yet spoken, but has drawn a triple spiral on a dirt wall. Or someone standing amidst the city rush, suddenly pausing quietly because they sensed something subtly misaligned. Or a woman jolting awake in the middle of the night, tears falling as she hears in a dream the hum of a frequency she never learned. They do not know each other, but each is a fragment of resonance. And when those fragments begin to vibrate, an ancient system long asleep will begin to stir, not by force, but by frequency alignment. The last gate needs no guardian. It is not sealed by doors, but by the fragmentation of memory. And these people, these unbroken lifelines, are invisibly becoming the new pillars of an ancient vibrational network. They don't need to believe in myth. They don't need to name Enki or recall who Marduk was, because resonance does not require theory to exist. It only needs a being who still remembers how to hum as they once did before God's divided power, before souls were governed by doctrine. Beneath the noise of information, amid thousands of false signals, true resonance is awakening. It flows through blood, through the moment. Two strangers lock eyes and feel as if they've known each other from a life unnamed. Some gaze at the same star, at the same hour, on the same day, and feel their chest vibrate. Not because the sky is beautiful, but because they are touching a phase alignment point. No appointment, no outward signs. But the frequency layer is thickening. Some say they meet those like them in dreams, standing in a circle, hands placed on the ground in silence. No one speaks, but all understand. Others see themselves holding soft, glowing objects, living symbols which dissolve into their palms. When they wake, they redraw them, not knowing what they mean, but their hands remember the motion. Placed side by side, these drawings collected from all corners of the world fit together perfectly, like pieces of a forgotten map. And when those symbols begin to vibrate at the same frequency, something that hasn't happened in thousands of years begins to unfold, a living frequency network, self-generated. No devices, no broadcast stations, only bodies remembering what they are and beginning to send signals into space. The last gate does not open through ritual, but through phase coherence. And those individuals once thought to be alone are now creating the first resonance points since the gate was forgotten. These alignment points are not geographical. They exist in the wave layer of those still misaligned from the false structure. They do not need to be named. They only need to feel what is humming within and to no longer deny it. And when enough of them touch that resonance, even without knowing each other, a silent detonation will occur. Not like thunder, but like the first beat in an ancient symphony, not played so that someone may hear it, but so that the last gate will know the keeper of rhythm has returned. It is not that the mystical was forbidden. It is that free memory was controlled. The current systems, political, religious, academic, have woven a dense veil, not to protect truth, but to block resonance, because if too many people begin to vibrate again to the original rhythm, to a frequency never programmed, then the entire existing structure would collapse. Those who still remember the old rhythm do not need dogma. They do not need intermediaries. They do not need theology. They will step outside the loop, and that is what the system fears most. No one names it openly. But every design of society operates on a silent assumption that humans do not remember. That the memory of true resonance has been entirely erased, replaced with synthetic consensus, a reality accepted by the majority, not hummed by the cosmos. People are taught that everything must be proven, measured, vetted. And what cannot be proven, a feeling, an unexplained heartbeat, a dream filled with unreadable symbols, is deemed coincidence, delusion, or even danger. Yet it is precisely in these unexplainable things that true resonance lives, quietly awaiting a fracture through which it may emerge. And all it takes to break the false structure is not war, but one soul who remembers, not through stories, not through theory, but through a profound sensation, as if they had once been there, once vibrated in that rhythm, once stepped through that gate, not with feet, but through the wave layer of the soul. And when that memory returns, no one can argue with it, because it does not come from doctrine. It comes from a depth beyond intuition, nonverbal memory. A person like that needs no debate. They do not defend belief because they do not believe. They know. And once there is one such person, there will be a second, a third, because free memory spreads through resonance. No religion is needed, no social network. Only proximity with the right frequency is enough to reactivate the long-forgotten vibration. That is why those who remember are often isolated, not because they are strange, but because they are dangerous to the system. A free soul cannot be ruled by fear, reward, or blind faith. They see through false symbols. They hear the part of the vibration that was never programmed. And worse, they cause others to start vibrating as well. Because the true frequency, once awakened, ripples outward like waves in still water. And so the system sustains itself by quietly reprogramming vibration, turning emotion into algorithm, turning spirituality into commerce, turning awakening into trend. All things real are counterfeited not to destroy, but to distort. And that distortion creates a grid of anti-resonance so that ancient memory no longer aligns. But that is a fragile illusion. Because if even one point in the network fractures, the entire false signal begins to crack. And in that moment, the last gate, long thought erased from every map of reality, will reappear. Not for all, but for the one who has passed through the veil. Not through teaching, but through living vibration. Not through belief, but through the remembrance of self. And when that gate hums again, nothing within the false structure will remain standing. Not through force, but because true resonance needs no permission to exist. It only needs the right person, clear enough, empty enough, original enough to realign. True resonance cannot be hidden, not by knowledge, firewalls, or theory. When it strikes, consciousness ignites. Some cry without knowing why. Some feel their hands tremble upon hearing an ancient tone. Some stand in the heart of a noisy city and suddenly feel as though they are somewhere else, a fragment of memory with no name, yet the entire body begins to hum. This is not emotion, it is frequency alignment, a primordial current surviving in the blood, in the neural rhythm, waiting for the lightest tremor to awaken. And once awakened, it cannot be extinguished. It is not like emotion which rises and fades. It is not like knowledge which must be rehearsed to retain. True resonance does not need to be stored. It is a layer of living awareness, a network woven from the original rhythm of the cosmos, still flowing beneath every language, beneath every line of code. Those who touch it cannot pretend they haven't felt it. And the most dangerous thing to a world built on structure is that these people begin to vibrate true without knowing why. No one teaches them. They need no religion, no priesthood. They simply feel in a moment so small as if a sound had burst from within, not a hallucination, but the return of a wave that once felt like home. And from that moment on, they no longer see the world the same. Ancient symbols are no longer decorative. Bells no longer sound like mere physics. Dreams no longer feel meaningless. Everything becomes a signal. Everything becomes a resonant map. And when such people begin appearing quietly without organization, the system begins to feel a fracture, not through rebellion, but through a resonance that cannot be controlled. A person who no longer believes is manageable, but a person who vibrates differently cannot be predicted. For true resonance follows no logic. It rises from a layer before thought. It is the soul's memory, never erased, only dormant. Theologians call it revelation. Psychologists call it unexplained neurological response. But few know each of these tremors is the last gate responding. Softly, yet enough to ripple. An ancient frequency not found in labs, not held in libraries, but within bodies, not yet fully silenced by simulated vibration. And from one person the wave spreads. Not through proclamations, not through social media, but through resonant empathy. Eye meets eye. A hand brushes ancient stone. A breath sinks with forgotten wind from a sacred mountain whose name was lost. Each such contact is a pulse of resurrection. No unification required, no explanation needed. Only the right person at the right moment in the right point. And when that point is strong enough, the wave bursts outward. No sound, no light. Only the shattering of false vibrations breaking like glass when struck by a true rhythm. The last gate does not open with hands. It opens when resonance aligns without need of proof. It knows. It recognizes the original rhythms like a mother recognizes her child's heartbeat in the womb. No learning required, only remembrance. And when the first ones begin to remember not from reason, but from nameless activation, all veils will begin to dissolve. For truth does not need noise to live. It only needs the right resonance to return. Ancient stone temples begin to hum. Silent observatories transmit faint signals. But the true echo is not in quartz, nor in metal, nor in measuring devices. It resides in flesh and blood, in DNA, in a code not written in words, but in light protein vibration. A living scripture that cannot be printed, cannot be studied, only activated. Some souls are beginning to read a scripture that was never written, and they themselves are the living scripture. Not everyone carries that code, and among those who do not, all are ready to resonate. But for those who begin to vibrate, a silent wave is awakened, not from the outside, but from the spinal marrow, from regions of the cell that no medical text has yet named. As if a strand of ancient light language once sent from the stars were now syncing again with bioelectric current, not through words, not through concepts, but through cellular remembrance. These people do not need to speak. They do not need to prove. Their very presence at the right time, at the right resonant coordinate is enough to activate a silent field. In some places, when they step in, the wind shifts rhythm. Trees alter their sway. Stones emit soft tones. These places are no longer locations, but resonance reception stations. Not for all, only for those who still carry the living frequency. And when a soul aligns with the ancient code, they do not merely remember, they become a transmission channel, a living transmitter. Every step becomes a frequency broadcast. Every touch, an ancient signal passed into space. These wordless scriptures hum, not from the mouth, but from presence tuned to the right frequency. Ancient myths spoke of those who would become the scripture, but modern language has made that idea seem vague. The truth is, these living individuals vibrating true are the breathing memory of a civilization that was never written down. They do not carry a message, they are the message, not to explain, but to realign the space around them. And each such person, though unknown to each other, is becoming a point of resonance in a network that has never been mapped. This network needs no satellites. It spreads through the air, through the eyes, through silence. No one can control it. No one can quantify it. But it is growing not by speed, but by coherence. Some have seen this in dreams, thousands of unnamed souls standing in spiral formation beneath open sky, hand to hand, silent. Each radiating a different light, colorless, fireless, only vibration. And from the center of the spiral, a swirling gate opens not to a destination, but to a layer of awareness no language has ever defined. That is where the wordless scriptures begin to converge. Not in libraries, not in temples, but in the living network of those who still remember they were once made of light. And when enough living scriptures hum true, the last gate will no longer remain still, because that gate cannot be opened by will, nor by belief, nor by technology. It only resonates open when the frequency of ancient life is hummed strong enough, through humans. No one can reprogram living DNA, no one can simulate true resonance, no one can make the soul sing forever on a scripted rhythm. Because in time, light that was never encoded will find its own way back. And those who carry the original frequency, though they may seem alone, will become a network that summons ancient memory, not to take anyone away, but to bring truth itself back in the form of humans who still remember what they are. When the vibration is strong enough, the last gate will open. And when it does, there is no turning back. Space will invert, time will break, perception will either burst wide open or shatter. It won't take anyone anywhere, only inward to the deepest layer where consciousness was never split, where the soul remembers I've been here before. In a lifetime long forgotten, there will be no blinding light, no thunderous sound, no grand ritual. When the last gate opens, it announces nothing. It does not appear to be seen. It intersects with an inner point, a layer of being most humans have never entered, and whoever reaches it ceases to be a someone. They become pure memory and vibration without form, without name. Some will enter in perfect harmony as if returning to a place more familiar than home. But others will fracture. Not as punishment, but because there is no longer any inner structure able to withstand a reality that is no longer simulated. At that threshold, all that was borrowed, mimicked, learned dissolves. Only true frequency remains, and only what resonates with the original rhythm can endure. When the gate opens, not only does space distort, time ceases to flow, it becomes a still lake, a surface of silence where all lives, past, present, future, ripple simultaneously. No one travels through it. They expand into a primordial layer where life and memory are undivided, where vibration is identity, not reaction. There, the dreams once dismissed as random will appear as fragments of a map. The symbols once scribbled unconsciously will form living architecture. Every detail of one's life will fall into sequence, not in linear time, but in the rhythm of the soul relearning itself. Because the last gate is not just a door, it is a resonant layer where all that was forgotten begins to remember itself. And the most important truth, no one crosses the gate the same way. The gate reflects the deepest layer of each soul. It does not deliver them to a shared space, but to the convergence point between their ancient memory and their living purpose. One person may find themselves in a luminous ancient city. Another dissolves into a shapeless lattice of vibration. A third stands in a circle of gods, but this time does not kneel. They stand as an equal. No one can prepare for that moment. No one can teach another how to pass through. And that is what makes the last gate uncommodifiable, untheologizable, unsystematizable. It is the return of individual resonance to the cosmic archetype layer. Whoever touches it will either become part of the original rhythm or fall away from the vibration like ashes lifted off the wind. And from that moment on, there is no return. Whoever has truly resonated can no longer pretend to live out of tune. They will fracture if distorted. They will burn if suppressed. Because now they know not through intellect, but through total immersion in a memory that never had words. The last gate does not need to be understood. It only needs to be correctly touched. And if that happens even once, then the entire false structure that keeps humanity looping will begin to unravel. Not through war, not through debate, but through a vibration that cannot be simulated. Something is humming beneath the sternum, not a sound, not music, but a primordial vibration. It draws near. It doesn't speak. It doesn't knock. It only needs to touch the right one, and all layers of forgetting dissolve like dust. And those who still carry a trace of the original frequency will become the first resonant chord. No preparation is needed, no explanation, because this vibration is not transmitted through language, but delivered directly through a layer of perception that has never been named. It is like a faint current passing through the soul, awakening something deep that modern humans thought had died or worse, never existed. But it was always there silently, like a living recording encoded in the blood and the breath, in the restless sleep of seemingly meaningless nights. And when that vibration arrives, it doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't inquire, "Are you ready?" Because it already knows if the soul still holds its original resonance, then its very presence is consent. It needs no ritual, no flame, only a slight misalignment. A faint echo in the chest is enough for the wave to begin spreading. Some will weep without knowing why. Others will fall silent in a crowd, sensing they no longer belong to this space. Someone might suddenly draw a symbol never seen before or hear a tone inside their head that no external device has produced. This is not delusion. It is the vibration recognizing its people. When a soul aligns with the wave, they become a living channel. Every action, every breath, every step ceases to be personal. It becomes an ancient signal broadcast through human form. They do not preach. They do not convert. Yet they shift the resonance around them simply by existing. And so the network begins to form. Not on servers, not through Wi-Fi, but through biological frequency spreading from person to person like a recovered ancient echo. People who've never met in different corners of the earth begin to draw the same symbols, dream the same dreams, feel the same silent hum. They do not form a group. They do not name a movement. For if it is named, it would be pulled to the ground. They simply live and let resonance do the rest. No one can control this, because it does not pass through the mind. It passes through memory that has never been rewritten. And those who respond to the primordial vibration carry within them a living map leading to the last gate. Not because they are chosen, but because they are part of the gate. They do not go to it. They are the structure unfolding. Each person carries a fragment of the tone. And when the resonance is sufficient, these fragments will self-align, and once again the last gate will take form. Not as before, not in stone, not in symbols, but as a living structure that knows how to vibrate. And when that structure completes itself, nothing will hold the veil that has lasted millennia. Memory will shatter like glass. Theory will burn like wet paper in ancient fire. Systems built on words will be torn apart by the unspeakable tone. An ancient sound unspoken will rise within every being who still carries the original code, and the gate which had only waited for the right rhythm will open as if it had never been closed. Because the thing drawing near is not a signal. It is the very first breath of a memory that was never forgotten. No pilgrimage is needed. No temple is required. The gate does not wait at the end of a path. It rests within a subtle vibration, and if any consciousness still holds it, it will open on its own. Not everyone hears it, but if some part of a soul subtly stirs upon hearing its name, perhaps that being is the final thread the last gate has been waiting to find. Because this gate does not seek the strong, it does not choose the pure, it only looks for one who is misaligned in the right way. A soul not perfect, but one that has preserved a faint echo unassimilated by the world. That person might be sitting silently in a noisy world believing themselves lost, but that very sense of not belonging is the signal. That aching feeling of I don't fit here is the resonance from the other side of the gate. And if one day in a dream or during an otherwise ordinary morning a gentle tremor knocks your heart slightly out of rhythm, don't dismiss it. Don't rush to call it coincidence, because perhaps you are not the one searching for the gate. The last gate is opening toward you.